Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, April 8th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 147 days. The game against Michigan in 233 days. The men's basketball season did not end the way Chris Holtmann's team probably wanted, but they are already being discussed as one of the top teams in the nation in the lead up to next season. There is, however, still some work to do between now and then. My guest today is Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Mick Walker. Mick, the Buckeyes will get an answer on one of their top targets for next season in exactly 1 week when Efton Reid announces his commitment. Can you let people know who he is and how the Buckeyes are looking in terms of landing him?
Yep. Before we get into Efton, Ohio State's top target in 2021 on the loan target left for the Buckeyes, do want to shout out Malachi Branham, who won Mr. Basketball in Ohio this morning. Good honor for the future Buckeye, first guy going to Ohio State to win it since Caleb Wesson. So shout out Malachi there. But moving back to Efton, he's the other remaining in the lone top target, however you want to phrase it, for the Buckeyes left in 2020, 2021. He's been a guy that Ohio State has been after for quite some time. He's not really a guy that a lot of blue bloods sort of came after, but he's a guy that you look at the schools he run down. At this point, it really seems like it's Ohio State, Pittsburgh, and then I think Virginia is probably in there, somewhere around there. I was told he has a limited list. I know there's some rumors out there saying that he has limited his list, maybe 2 or 3 schools. I think it all just depends, but April 15th is his date. And he's exactly really what all Ohio State fans will tell you they need, and what I think Ohio State, even what the Ohio State coaches will even say that they want, and that's a legitimate, like a Kofi Coburn and Luka Garza sized big man, not a Kyle Young guy that's going to have to play up against these big guys and play smart and not foul and be savvy defensively. This is a guy that can go size wise toe to toe with a Kofi or a Luka and can just sort of slow them down. That's what Ohio State fans want. That's what they wanted out of the portal, which we'll talk about later. It's just, that's exactly what Ohio State was looking for. Luckily, they did get him on campus for a visit, not this past football season, but the one before that. And he was there with Malachi Branham. I haven't checked with Malachi really to see what the relationship is, but I know at one point they were sort of talking. I know Michi had sort of talked to him as well when he was still a recruit and not on the Ohio State roster. Kalen has also talked to Efton a little bit. And it's really just Efton on the board for Ohio State after Charles Bediako did commit to Alabama. His decision's on April 15th, like I mentioned. It just depends. I think nothing's out there yet. And as we sort of get closer, that's when I think we'll start seeing some either rumor swirl or something pop out. But really, it's Efton and his mom sort of keeping everything close to the vest. And until probably right around April 15th, we won't know. But Ohio State is in a good position. They've done a lot of work here, and he's somebody that would fit great, and they would love to have.
You mentioned the transfer portal there, and it has been a busy and active couple weeks for the Buckeyes in the transfer portal. As always, the transfer portal giveth, and the transfer portal taketh away. Ohio State lost a player to the transfer portal, and then they're also bringing someone in from another Big Ten school. So can you kind of let people know what's going on there and what's going on with the roster moves with the portal there?
Yeah, so obviously losing Musa, statistically, it's probably not the biggest hit, but I think leadership-wise, fit-wise, when it comes to defense, which is something that Coach Holtmann's harped on throughout his tenure at Ohio State, that is a big loss for them because Musa was sort of a defensive stopper, somebody that you can sort of look to as a 1 through 4, maybe even a 1 through 5 defender at times, and he did it very well for Ohio State during his tenure. You got to remember, he was the guy that came in with Kyle Young, Caleb Weston in that first Chris Holtmann class, and he actually reclassified up a year to come in and get on campus. So maybe just a change of scenery, a time where Musa can get an expanded role, be something that he's looking for. Best of luck to him. It does hurt Ohio State defensively, but like you said, transfer portal giveth and transfer portal taketh away. The giveth part would be, I have to double check his name here. Obviously, the last name is Wheeler. Jamari Wheeler from Penn State, the point guard, 2-time defense, all Big Ten defensive team, a guy that's going to bring a lot of defensive tenacity and leadership. I mean, when you look at just numbers wise, he doesn't put up the most numbers when it comes to points or assists. But when you're Ohio State, you have Dwayne Washington coming back, you have EJ Liddell coming back, you have Seth Towns, you have Justice Sue. You don't necessarily need that big offensive output when it comes to the portal. What you needed was this guy like Wheeler, where Andre Curbello's giving you fits in that game, Wheeler's on him for the game, or going down the list of guys like that in the Big Ten where Ohio State has had problems with shifty point guards or guys that can get in the lane a lot. Wheeler is able to come in and take that away right away. We talked about Efton right before this. The transfer portal could be another kind thing to Ohio State if they do not land Efton. I imagine that's when looking at bigs will sort of pick up. There's a ton of different big names in the portal as it stands right now. But when it comes to adding another guy to the portal, it'll probably all depend on what Efton decides to do and when they finally get word of Efton's decision. As we saw with Wheeler, they had about 3 names circled. Gerard West is another one. Wheeler was one, and then I can't remember the third name. But once everything, they sort of circled their guy, they got their guy, and all those dominoes started to fall. I think you'll maybe be able to see some of the same thing when it comes to if Efton goes somewhere else. Those dominoes will start to fall when it comes to getting a big man out of the portal, because like Ohio State knows they need some size, some length, and athleticism to move forward with next year's roster.
And they probably want to add some size and length and athleticism for the 2022 class as well. Right now, if you look at the team rankings, they are the number 1 class in the nation. It's like, all right, that's probably a really good sign. And they've got 3 guys already committed for that class. They are all guards. So you are going to want to add a big probably to that class. You just wrote about 5 big men that they could add to that class. So kind of run down some of those possibilities and let people know like which one you think may be the most viable right now.
Yep, I did some digging. I sort of searched around, figure out the names that Ohio State was looking for when it comes to those big man prospects. And like you said, there's 5 up there. We'll start at the top, and that's 2 guys that are one's in a 5-star, one is a 5-star, one's right up on the cusp of being a 5-star, and that's AJ Casey and Julian Phillips. 2 guys that are just really good, lengthy athletes with a lot of athleticism and a lot of raw talent, and that just sort of needs to be refined. You're looking for some ball handling to improve, some shooting structure to improve. Because when you look at a lot of these bigs, you look at the height on a lot of them. They're right in that 6'9", 6'8" range, and that's what Ohio State would look to do with the role of a guy like EJ Liddell, like he played this year. A lot of pick and pop, pick and roll, defend well, rebound well. And that's why you have AJ Casey and Julian Phillips right at the top, because they can do a lot of what EJ Liddell does for Ohio State right now and do it at a high level. After that, you got another guy in Isaac Trout. I believe his name is. I don't want to butcher his last name too much. Out of Nebraska, and he's a guy that when you're talking about the way the basketball is going nowadays, you want guys that can shoot, guys that can handle the ball and create mismatch and matchup problems. That's what Isaac does in Nebraska, and that's why he's holding a ton of different offers. I mentioned in the article, just through his junior season alone, he's picked up offers from Kansas and Virginia, which even though they might not have the best years when it comes to performance this year, are still want to consider 2 of the top programs in the country by most recruits. You also have programs like I believe I heard that Gonzaga is looking around at this guy. North Carolina is looking around with them. Michigan State. So there's tons of top tier programs that are sort of looking at Isaac. And Ohio State did offer somewhat early last fall, but it's not seeming like the most likely thing, even though he's probably really exactly what Ohio State would want to add alongside these guards. The 4th name on that list that I mentioned, and I also mentioned that he was the most likely, is Kyle Flipowski, I believe is how you say it. He's a guy from Massachusetts. Exactly probably what Ohio State fans would want in their big man. He's about 6'10", 215 pounds. And he's a guy that obviously has that length, but he also has that shooting stroke that we talked about with Isaac Trout. And he's somebody that could really pair well and be a pick and pop guy, pick and roll. Exactly what I talked about again with EJ Liddell, but moving down and adding a little more size, maybe docking the athleticism, but more size when it comes to Flipowski, or Flip as they call him. One thing that Ohio State does have in their pocket there, and that should help them, is that Roddy Gale Jr., one of Ohio State's 3 guard commits, like we mentioned, he's on New York Renaissance, which is Kyle Flipowski's and Roddy Gale Jr. They are on the same AAU team together on the Nike EYBL circuit. So this whole spring and summer, hopefully I can get out and catch them, but this whole spring and summer, they will be playing together in each other's ear. And I think Roddy's very pro Ohio State. He's willing to talk him up, and I think Kyle will sort of hear that. Another thing that Ohio State has going for him is I was corrected by somebody at Ohio State when it comes to this, and Kyle corrected me as well. I mentioned that Brian Peden's coaching is recruiting Flipowski for Ohio State. It's actually Jake Diebler, who, if you look through the rankings, look at the commitment articles on all 3 of the commits in the class so far, he's landed and been the lead recruiter on Bowen Hardman, then on Roddy Gale Jr., and on Bruce Thornton. Really, Jake Diebler's been one of the best recruiters in the 2022 cycle so far, and it should not change at all, especially if you can land a guy like Flipowski. And then the last guy on that list is Prince Algaby, and guy at a Minnehaha Academy in Minneapolis, same school as top 2021 prospect Chet Holmgren. This is an interesting guy because he's only about 6'6", but he's a guy that can bring a ton of athleticism, a ton of skill at that forward position. I think it's somebody that Ohio State really, despite his ranking, they really like, and it would be interesting to see if they can get him on campus and see how this recruitment progresses. Because we talked about roster numbers before we got on Tom, and it was sort of confusing. But if they were able to find maybe two big men they like, I think they could swing that. Definitely need one though in this 2022 class. But if you could say get a guy like Flipowski and Algaby, I think that'd be great for Ohio State and sort of give them this really strong and tight 5-man class when it comes to the 2022 group.
Before I let you go, the last time you were on, we talked a little bit of wrestling, and man, every time we talk wrestling, people were like, "I love it when you talk wrestling." So, all right, we're going to talk a little wrestling. They just went through the Olympic trials last weekend. A number of former Buckeyes were involved in that. One of them made the Olympic team. Let people know what happened with the Olympic trials and how different Buckeyes fared in those.
Yeah, so 6 different Buckeyes competed in the Olympic trials this past weekend. 5 on the freestyle side, 1 on the Greco side. Two guys that are no longer in Ohio RTC and Epic Ohio State program that did place and took home some hardware and will also be on the national team for placing top 3. And that's Nathan Tomasello and Joey McKenna, 2 guys that Ohio State fans love and 2 guys that really work their tails off. McKenna's over at the Penn RTC program right now, getting his master's degree at the University of Penn. So no hard feelings there. Nathan Tomasello as well got an assistant coaching position at Duke to coach wrestling. So he's doing a great job down there. But both guys put on for the Ohio RTC this weekend in Ohio State and will be on the U.S. national team and also get wrestling. Obviously isn't the biggest sport when it comes to professional, but they will get a nice little bit of a living stipend, which will help these guys when it comes to just pursuing their goals and continue to wrestle. Outside of that, the 97 kilo weight class in the freestyle one was probably the most interesting. Even if you take out the Jaden Cox, who was supposed to be Kyle Snyder's top contender, who missed weight. It came down in the finals. It was Colin Moore, who's just graduated from Ohio State and lost the NCAA championship last year due to COVID. He's a guy that has just really been steadily improving for the Ohio RTC on this wrestling circuit. He made it to the finals, wrestled former Buckeye and current Penn State, current guy who trains in the Penn State in the Lion Wrestling Room, and that's Kyle Snyder, who's going to represent Ohio State, represent the USA on the Olympics this summer. Great finals for those 2 guys. And moving over to the 97 kilogram weight class on the Greco side, the lone guy that's still in Ohio State's program right now, and that's redshirt freshman Nick Boykin, who made a great run to the challenge finals of the Greco tournament. Just came up short, lost a star freshman in Braxton Amos, who's going to rest this year at Wisconsin, and then 2 guys that are very experienced, and then another guy that's very experienced in the weight class. It was really a good all-around weekend for the Ohio State guys. It's been just a great sort of run. It's been a very interesting thing on the wrestling side for those that follow it. Obviously, Travell Bologna leaving the RTC program, picking up a few different Pennsylvania commits, which will help them sort of improve their mat wrestling that everybody's talked about. And it's just been a great, interesting time for that wrestling program and should continue. And hopefully you got me on and we can talk more wrestling eventually, because I know I love it. Everybody else loves it. And I think even you like to talk about it, Tommy, because you like to talk about all the Olympic sports as well.
I do love the Olympic sports. Yeah, I asked on our Ask the Insiders board a little while back, what other sports outside of football, men's basketball, like what other sports would you guys want us to cover on the Morning Scoop from time to time? And wrestling was by like far and away the one of the top responses. And we live to serve here at BuckeyeScoop.com. So here we are talking wrestling. And I'm sure I have a pretty good feeling Mick will be on once again to talk wrestling in the near future. So Mick, thank you for joining me this morning. And make sure you check out BuckeyeScoop.com for everything to do with the Buckeyes. Men's basketball, women's basketball, wrestling. We cover a little football every once in a while from time to time. This is the next to last week of spring football practice, and we will have tons of coverage there. Tony Grudem and I both spent a couple days inside watching practice recently. Have a lot of interesting takeaways, plus our team of insiders. The Nevada Buck is churning out great information just pretty much every day at this point on what's going on inside the WAC. You can find that all at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. You know where to find them. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Also, leave us a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find the show. And finally, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Everything we do, we post there. You can watch it all there. Interviews, camp footage, podcast. It's all there. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified every time we post a new video. That's youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.